Hey guys, so um, I spaced on this a little bit this week. It's been a bit of a rough week. So it's definitely midnight, as I'm sure you can tell by the fact that the lighting is a lot different. Um, and I believe this is our last day of the Psalm study, which is sad because I've loved it so much and it's been so fun getting to study the Word of God with all of you. I'll be totally honest with you guys, I am really struggling with this psalm. I'm not really sure why it's in the plan. Um, I had a hard time really pulling any thoughts together from the study and from my reading of this. Um, so I'm going to do the best I can, and I hope that this blesses you in some way. This is Psalm 2. Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, Let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us. He who sits in the heavens laughs. The Lord holds them in derision. Then he will speak to them in his wrath and terrify them in his fury, saying, As for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill. I will tell of the decree. The Lord said to me, You are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage, and the ends of the earth your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron, and dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Now therefore, O kings, be wise. Be warned, O rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you perish in the way. For his wrath is quickly kindled. Blessed are all who take refuge in him. So, the She Reads Truth study calls this a prayer celebrating the gift of Jesus. And the writer of that article does sort of discuss a little bit the confusing aspects of this psalm. It's definitely a psalm that focuses on the wrath of God, which I think is a part of God that we very often don't like to think about or talk about. It's a very strange psalm. It doesn't really tell you who wrote it. It doesn't have any intro really whatsoever. It's just sort of there. And it's also not one we talk about. I mean, I can't remember reading it ever. I know I have because I've read the Bible through multiple times, but like I don't specifically remember like any sermons or anything that I've really heard focused on this psalm. I've never really heard people quote from it. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, mostly being the fact that this psalm portrays, I think, a side of Jesus that we are not as comfortable with. And I thought about that a little bit and wondered why we're not comfortable with it. And I think a lot of the reason is that we love the loving side of God, and the rescuing and protecting side. And we don't really quite know what to do with the wrathful and just side, this side that it talks about in this psalm, the side who like crushes kings and brings down mountains, and is angry and frightening, is a side of God that we don't really like to focus on, but it is a side that exists. So I think something she talked about in the study is that even if we don't understand all the sides of God, and even if we don't understand totally who he is or everything about him, it's important that we don't put him in a box and we don't cut off pieces of him just because we don't like them. And I think that's probably the most important thing for me going into this psalm is just, I don't like this side of God. I don't like to think about it. I don't like to talk about it. I don't like it when the Bible puts an emphasis on it, because to be honest, it's hard for me to reconcile with the loving and caring side of God. But it wasn't hard for the psalmist, obviously, because he talks about all this wrath and then he ends it with the line, Blessed are all who take refuge in him. So even though he's something frightening and terrifying, he's still something that we run to for refuge. And it's hard for me to put those things together, but they are both sides of the same God. And so I think it's very important that we are aware of that, and that we don't just try to make God into the side of him that feels the most comforting to us, because he's all of these things at once. So anyway, that's what I have, just a little bit. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. I've loved getting to be a part of this with all of you. And I hope at some point we can meet in person and talk about the Bible, maybe face to face.